Pope Francis, the first of that name. A Latin American, where 40% of the world's Catholics now live.
The news broke like a thunderclap across the Catholic world. Pope Francis, the 266th pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church, leader of 1.3 billion faithful and guardian of centuries-old traditions, had made a decision that shattered a practice maintained by his predecessors for over 600 years. The announcement, delivered during what was expected to be a routine Wednesday general audience, left Vatican observers stunned, religious scholars scrambling for historical context, and millions of Catholics worldwide wondering, is this the beginning of a new era for the Church, or, as some traditionalists fear, the end of an institution as they've known it? For nearly 2 millennia, the Catholic Church has stood as one of humanity's most enduring institutions, weathering schisms, reformations, revolutions, and the rise and fall of empires. Throughout this vast history, the Church has balanced a delicate tension between preserving ancient traditions and adapting to a changing world. At the center of this balance has always been the Pope, simultaneously a link to the Church's ancient past and the steward of its future. Then, suddenly, dramatic headlines began appearing across global media. Pope Francis shatters 600-year tradition. Vatican earthquake. Francis breaks with centuries of papal practice, and perhaps most provocatively, the tradition ends. Is this the final pope? The claims spread rapidly across platforms where algorithms reward engagement without regard for nuance or context. Concerned Catholics flooded parish offices with questions, while commentators across the political and religious spectrum rushed to interpret the significance of the Pope's decision. I've studied papal history for 30 years, and even I was taken aback by the boldness of this move, said Dr. Isabella Moretti, professor of Catholic Studies at Georgetown University. To understand why this has created such shockwaves, you have to appreciate just how central this particular tradition has been to the papacy's self-understanding for centuries. The tradition in question dates back to 1417, during a tumultuous period known as the Western Schism, when competing claims to the papacy had divided the Church. Following the Council of Constance, which resolved the crisis by electing Pope Martin V, a new protocol was established to reinforce papal authority and continuity. This protocol, known as the Apostolic Succession Ceremony, required each newly elected pope to physically retrieve and wear a specific ceremonial garment that had been worn by every pontiff since Martin V. The garment, a hand-embroidered stole, known as the Stola Perpetua, perpetual stole, had been carefully preserved and transferred from pope to pope for over 6 centuries. More than just a piece of ceremonial clothing, it had become a powerful symbol of the unbroken line of papal succession stretching back to St. Peter himself. The tradition dictated that within 24 hours of election, each new pope must retrieve the stole from its special vault beneath St. Peter's Basilica and wear it during their first blessing to the faithful. This wasn't just about a piece of cloth, explained Monsignor Paolo Veronesi, a Vatican historian. The Stola Perpetua represented the continuity of the Church through time. Each pope added a single golden thread to it, literally weaving themselves into the unbroken tapestry of Church history. For Francis to set this aside is, well, it's unprecedented in the modern papacy. What makes Pope Francis's decision so shocking isn't just that he broke with tradition, it's how he did it and the reasoning he provided. The time has come to separate the essence of our faith from the trappings of earthly power, Francis stated during his announcement. This stole, beautiful as it is, has become a symbol of papal monarchy rather than papal service. From this day forward, each pope will receive a simple white stole made by the poor of Rome, reminding us that our true vestment is not gold thread, but the towel with which Christ washed his disciples' feet. With those words, Pope Francis effectively ended a tradition that had survived world wars, the Protestant Reformation, the French Revolution, and the rapid secularization of the modern world. In its place, he established a new tradition centered on simplicity and service, core themes of his papacy since his election in 2013. Francis has always been a pope of surprises, noted Vatican correspondent Marco Politti. But this goes beyond surprising. It's revolutionary. He's not just changing a ceremony, he's changing what the papacy symbolizes. The question now is whether this represents a momentary deviation tied to his particular vision, or a permanent shift in how the papacy understands itself. The reaction to the Pope's decision has revealed deep divisions within Catholicism. For progressive Catholics, the move represents a welcome shift toward a church more focused on serving the marginalized than maintaining pomp and ceremony. For traditionalists, it signals an alarming break with the very continuity that has defined Catholicism for centuries. "This isn't about a stole," said Cardinal Raymond Burke, a prominent conservative voice within the Church. "This is about whether we believe the Church is a divine institution with traditions that transcend any single papacy, or whether each pope can simply reinvent the Church according to his personal preferences. If it's the latter, what exactly separates us from any Protestant denomination?" On social media, the debate has been even more polarized, with hashtags like #FrancisRevolution and #TraditionBetrayed trending globally. Catholic influencers on both sides have produced videos and posts generating millions of views, each interpreting the Pope's decision through their particular theological lens. What's fascinating about this controversy is how it's become a proxy for larger debates about the Church's identity, observed Dr. Moretti. When people argue about this stole, they're really arguing about authority, tradition, modernity, and what it means to be Catholic in the 21st century. For Vatican insiders, the timing of the announcement was particularly significant. Francis made his decision public on the feast day of St. Gregory the Great, a 6th century pope who himself instituted major reforms, including simplifying papal ceremonies and redirecting church resources towards serving the poor. This deliberate connection to a reforming pope from the Church's past suggests Francis sees his break with recent tradition as actually a return to more ancient values. "People forget that many ancient Catholic traditions aren't actually that ancient," explained Sister Helen Prasian, a Catholic nun and social justice advocate. "The elaborate papal court, the triple tiara, the portable throne, these were medieval inventions, not apostolic traditions. What Francis is doing is distinguishing between the essential traditions that connect us to Christ and the accretions of history that often reflect worldly power more than gospel values." The Pope's decision has also raised questions about what other changes might be coming. If a 600-year-old tradition can be set aside, what other aspects of church practice might be reconsidered? This question has created both excitement and anxiety throughout the Catholic world. "Change in the Catholic Church has always been a complex process," noted Monsignor Veronesi. "We have a saying in Rome, the Church thinks in centuries. What seems revolutionary in the moment often becomes integrated into a larger continuity over time. The challenge is discerning which changes represent a deeper fidelity to the Church's mission and which might undermine it." For ordinary Catholics in parishes around the world, the debate over papal vestments might seem remote from their daily faith lives. Yet many parish priests report fielding questions from concerned parishioners about what the Pope's decision means for the future of the Church. "Most of my congregation had never even heard of the Stola Perpetua before this controversy," said Father James Martin, a Jesuit priest and author. "But they're interested in what it symbolizes. They want to know, is Pope Francis leading us toward a more authentic expression of our faith, or is he breaking something precious?" That's a legitimate question that deserves thoughtful engagement rather than knee-jerk reactions. The historical context of Francis's decision adds another layer of complexity. The 600-year-old tradition he ended emerged from a period of crisis in church history, the Western Schism, when up to 3 rival popes simultaneously claimed authority. The Stola Perpetua was created partly to ensure such a crisis would never happen again by making visible the legitimate line of succession. "There's a certain irony here," observed Dr. Moretti. "A tradition created to heal division has now become a source of division itself. That says something profound about how symbols can change their meaning over time, even while remaining physically identical." For Pope Francis himself, the decision appears to be part of a larger vision for church reform that has defined his papacy. Since his election in 2013, he has consistently emphasized a poor church for the poor, criticized clericalism and excessive focus on hierarchy, and called for a more synodal church where authority is shared more broadly. When you look at this decision in the context of Francis's overall project, it makes perfect sense, explained Austin Ivory, a papal biographer. He's been trying to shift the Church's self-understanding from an institution that preserves its own power to a field hospital that serves a wounded world. The symbolism of replacing a gold-threaded stole worn by popes with a simple cloth made by the poor couldn't be clearer. Yet critics argue that Francis is creating a false dichotomy between tradition and service, between preserving the Church's heritage and advancing its mission. The Catholic genius has always been both and, not either or. said Bishop Robert Barron, an American prelate known for his evangelization work. We can honor our traditions while serving the poor. We can maintain beautiful ceremonies while fighting for justice. The danger in setting these in opposition is that we lose the distinctive Catholic synthesis that has allowed the Church to be both timeless and timely. As the debate continues, historians note that this is hardly the first time a pope has broken with tradition. Pope John Paul I abandoned the papal coronation ceremony in 1978. Pope Paul VI sold the papal tiara to benefit the poor. Even the tradition of papal names began when a man named Mercury became pope in 533 and decided it was inappropriate for a Christian leader to bear the name of a pagan god, so he became John VI instead. The papacy has always evolved, noted Monsignor Veronesi. What makes this moment different is the speed of communication and the polarization of Catholic discourse. In previous centuries, a change like this might have been known only to those in Rome for months or years. Now it's global news within minutes, and everyone feels compelled to have an immediate opinion. For Pope Francis, now 87 years old, the decision represents one of the most significant symbolic acts of a papacy already marked by bold gestures. Whether it will be remembered as a prophetic reform or a regrettable rupture likely depends on what happens after his papacy ends. The real test will come with the next pope, observed Polity. Will he return to the old tradition, effectively rendering Francis's decision a temporary aberration? Or will he accept the new practice, thereby confirming it as the new tradition? That's when we'll truly understand the historical significance of this moment. As Catholics worldwide process this unexpected change, many find themselves reflecting on the nature of tradition itself. What makes something traditional, which traditions are essential, and how traditions evolve over time. Tradition isn't static, it's a living reality, explained Sister Pergine. The word comes from the Latin tradere, to hand on. Each generation receives traditions, interprets them in light of their own time, and hands them on to the next. Sometimes that means preserving exactly what was received. Other times it means adapting it to new circumstances while maintaining its essential purpose. For now, the 600-year-old Stola Perpetua has been respectfully placed in the Vatican museums, where it will be preserved and displayed as an important historical artifact. In its place, Pope Francis wore a simple white stole crafted by women from a homeless shelter in Rome during his next public appearance, a visible sign of his vision for a church more focused on serving the marginalized than maintaining the trappings of institutional power. Is this the end? Reflected Monsignor Veronesi, echoing the question posed in so many headlines. It's the end of a particular tradition, certainly, but the Catholic Church has endured for 2 millennia, precisely because it knows how to distinguish between its unchanging essence and its changeable expressions. What looks like an ending from one perspective might well be a beginning from another. As the dust settles on this papal earthquake, one thing remains clear. In an institution that thinks in centuries, the full meaning of Pope Francis's decision won't be known in days, weeks, or even years. Its true significance will unfold across generations as the Church continues its perpetual balancing act between preserving its heritage and responding to the signs of the times. The Church is always dying and always being reborn, Pope Francis himself noted in a homily shortly after his controversial announcement. Our task is not to embalm it, but to nurture it, not to guard a museum, but to tend a garden. Some plants that serve their purpose may need to be pruned so new growth can flourish. This is not destruction, but renewal, the constant Easter of the Church. For a pope who took his name from St. Francis of Assisi, who heard the divine command to rebuild my church, the breaking of a 600-year tradition may be less about ending something old than about beginning something new. Whether that new beginning represents a restoration of more ancient values or a departure from essential continuity remains the question at the heart of this unfolding story. As one elderly Roman priest remarked to journalists waiting outside St. Peter's Square, "I have served under 5 popes, and each time a new one is elected, someone declares it's the end of the Church as we know it. Yet here we are, still praying, still serving, still believing. Perhaps the real tradition isn't a stole at all, but this remarkable capacity to remain ourselves while becoming something new."